The 7 biggest mistakes that quietly break your dog's heart. Soft, melancholic piano. Slow B-roll of a dog waiting by the door. Your dog has been trying to tell you something. Not with barking, not with whimpering. With something quieter than that. Something most owners never notice. Until it's too late. And here's what makes it heartbreaking. The things that hurt your dog the most aren't the obvious ones. They're not the missed walks or the forgotten treats. They're the small, everyday moments that you probably think are completely harmless. But to your dog, they mean everything. Today, we're going to talk about the 7 biggest mistakes that quietly break your dog's heart. And I promise you, by the time this video ends, you will never look at your dog the same way again. Warm, gentle music. B-roll of dogs at home, sitting alone, watching windows, waiting. Think about the last time you came home after a long day. Your dog was probably already at the door, tail going, eyes wide. The whole body practically vibrating with something that can only be described as pure, undiluted joy. And you probably smiled, scratched behind the ears, said something like, "Hey, buddy," and then you put your bag down, checked your phone, started thinking about dinner. Normal, right? But here's what your dog experienced in that exact moment. For them, your return wasn't just nice. It was the single most important event of their entire day. They had been waiting, not impatiently, but devotedly, counting down every minute until you walked through that door. And in those first few seconds of reunion, they were reading you, watching your energy, looking for signs that you were happy, that you were safe, that everything was okay. Dogs don't love casually. They love completely, which means the mistakes we make, even the innocent ones, land harder than we could ever imagine. Let's start with the first one. And fair warning, this one might sting a little. Slightly heavier music. Close-up of a dog's face, waiting. When you walk through the door and your dog rushes to greet you and you brush past them without a real moment of connection, your dog doesn't think, "Oh, they're just tired." They can't think that. They don't have the emotional vocabulary for it. What they feel instead is a kind of quiet confusion, a flicker of something that behaviorists describe as emotional deflation, the sudden drop after a peak of anticipation. You were the center of their entire universe all day long, and when you arrived, the universe didn't respond. Now, this doesn't mean you need to throw a parade every time you open the door, but here's the thing. Even 30 seconds of real, intentional greeting changes everything for your dog. Crouching down, making eye contact, saying their name with warmth. 30 seconds. That's all it takes to make your dog feel like their wait was worth it. Because to them, it always is. And the second mistake? It's something almost every dog owner does without even realizing it, especially at night. Here's a question. Has your dog ever chewed something, made a mess, or done something wrong, and by the time you found it, 20 minutes had passed, and you showed it to them anyway? Maybe you raised your voice, maybe you scolded them in front of the damage. If so, I need you to hear this. Your dog had absolutely no idea what they were being punished for. Not because they're stubborn, not because they're untrainable, but because of the way a dog's brain processes time and consequence. Studies on canine cognition show that a dog's ability to connect cause and effect lasts only seconds, not minutes. So when you came home to that chewed cushion and brought your dog over to show them what they did, your dog saw a frightening version of the person they love most, appearing upset for no reason they could understand. They didn't think, "Oh, right, the cushion." They thought, "Something is very wrong, and I don't know how to fix it." That crouching posture you interpreted as guilt, that wasn't guilt. It was fear. It was submission. It was your dog desperately trying to make the storm pass. And here's what makes this so heartbreaking. They trusted you to make sense of the world. And in that moment, the world didn't make sense at all. The third mistake is gentler than that, but in some ways, it cuts even deeper. Monday, your dog is allowed on the couch. Tuesday, you have guests, and suddenly, no couch. You point sternly at the floor. Your dog stares at you, baffled. Wednesday, you're tired, and you pat the cushion. Come on, up you go. To you, that makes perfect sense. Context, right? But your dog lives in a world without context. They live in a world of patterns, repetition, and trust. When the rules keep changing, dogs don't adapt the way we think they do. Instead, they begin to experience something researchers call chronic low-level anxiety, a baseline tension that comes from never quite knowing what to expect, what's allowed, what's safe. And here's the emotional piece that most people miss entirely. Dogs don't just want freedom, they want structure, because structure to a dog feels like safety, and safety feels like love. When the rules are clear and consistent, your dog can relax. They can just be with you, fully, without background noise in their mind. Inconsistency doesn't just confuse your dog, it quietly erodes the one thing they need most: certainty, trust, groundedness. The fourth mistake is one I know is going to hit home, because it's one of the most common things we do when life gets busy. Gentle, introspective music. B-roll of a bored dog lying flat, staring at nothing. Imagine being deeply intelligent, curious, wired to explore, to solve, to connect. Now imagine spending 10 hours a day alone in a house with nothing to do. That is your dog's reality more often than most of us want to admit. We think about physical exercise, walks, runs, fetch, and yes, those matter. But dogs don't just have bodies, they have minds. Active, searching, problem-solving minds that need just as much engagement as their muscles do. When a dog is mentally understimulated, it doesn't just look like boredom. It can look like chewing, barking, restlessness, digging, behaviors that we label as bad, but are really just a mind crying out for something to do. Dr. Alexander Horowitz, a leading expert in dog cognition, describes dogs as animals who are fundamentally built to work alongside humans. When that collaboration disappears, when life becomes passive and empty, something dims inside them. It doesn't take much to change this. A puzzle feeder, a sniff walk where you let them choose the direction, a training session that's more game than lesson. 10 minutes of real mental engagement can transform your dog's entire emotional state for the rest of the day. They don't need a lot. They just need something. And speaking of needing something, the fifth mistake is probably the one that will stay with you the longest after this video ends. There's a kind of love that doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't look like long walks on the beach or birthday cakes with paw prints. It lives in the small moments. The moment you glance over at your dog and they're already looking at you. The moment you sit on the floor for no reason and they immediately press themselves against you. The moment you whisper their name softly and they lift their head like it's the most important sound in the world. These small moments aren't just sweet. According to research from the University of Tokyo, when a dog locks eyes with their owner, both experience a significant rise in oxytocin, the same bonding hormone that surges between mothers and their newborns. Your dog is literally bonding with you through a glance. And yet, how many of those glances do we miss? How many afternoons do we spend in the same room, on different planets, separated by screens and stress and the thousand small demands of being a human? Your dog never stops looking for you, even when you're sitting right next to them. Missing those moments doesn't make you a bad owner, but noticing them, really noticing them, makes you the kind of presence your dog has been hoping for all along. Music shifts, heavier, more serious. Your dog doesn't understand your words, but they understand everything else. The tension in your shoulders, the clipped, sharp way your voice changes when you're angry, the sudden loudness that fills the room when things go wrong. Dogs are extraordinarily sensitive to human emotional tone, far more than most of us appreciate. They aren't just hearing your volume, they're absorbing your energy. Your stress becomes their stress. Your frustration enters the room before you even speak a word. Now, think about what it's like for a dog who lives in a home where the emotional environment is unpredictable, where a raised voice can come from nowhere, where even affection occasionally carries an undercurrent of tension. They can't leave. They can't explain themselves. They can't ask for reassurance. All they can do is watch and worry and wait for the storm to settle. Veterinary behaviorists consistently point to emotional unpredictability, not physical punishment, but emotional unpredictability, as one of the leading contributors to chronic stress in domestic dogs. Your dog doesn't need you to be perfect. They don't need you to be endlessly cheerful, but they need you to be safe. They need to know that your presence is something they can lean into, not brace against. Because for your dog, you are their entire world. And the last mistake, number 7, is the quietest of all. Here's something most people never fully absorb. Your dog is studying you, constantly, with an attention and dedication that most humans never direct toward another living thing. They watch the way you move when you're happy. They notice the specific sound of your car from a quarter mile away. They know your patterns, your habits, your rhythms, sometimes better than you know them yourself. Researchers in Budapest found that dogs have developed an extraordinary ability to read human social cues, an ability that even our closest primate relatives don't fully possess. Dogs evolved specifically to understand us, to track us, to tune into us. And here's what that means in a practical sense. When you forget that your dog is always watching, when you treat them as background, as furniture, as something you'll get to later, they notice. Not with judgment, not with resentment, but with a kind of quiet longing. They're watching you love other things, watching you light up about other people, watching you move through your day, and hoping, always hoping, that at some point you'll turn around and look at them. The mistake isn't cruelty. It's forgetting. Forgetting that in the middle of your ordinary day, the laundry, the emails, the meetings, and the meals, there is a living creature in your home who thinks you are the most extraordinary thing they have ever seen. Music swells gently. Slow B-roll of dogs sleeping, nuzzling, waiting by windows. I want you to stop for a second. If your dog is somewhere near you right now, in the room, on the floor, curled up somewhere close, just take a moment to look at them. Really look. Because here's the truth about dogs that no one tells you plainly enough. They don't need perfection. They never did. They're not waiting for you to become a better owner or a calmer person or a more consistent trainer. They are waiting for you, the flawed, tired, distracted, busy, beautiful version of you that walks through that door every day. And they choose you every single day, without conditions, without hesitation, without keeping score. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most profound relationships on this earth. And when we understand what quietly hurts them, when we pay attention to the small moments, the tone of our voice, the consistency of our presence, we're not just becoming better dog owners. We're becoming worthy of a love we didn't even know we'd been given. Softest music now. Almost no narration cues needed. Just the words. Your dog doesn't need grand gestures. They need the 30-second greeting when you walk in the door. They need the floor session that turns into a spontaneous 20-minute cuddle. They need the walk where you let them sniff for as long as they want. Because for them, that's not just a walk. That's reading the whole world. They need your voice to feel like a safe place. They need your presence to feel like coming home. 7 mistakes, 7 small corrections, 7 opportunities to become exactly what your dog has always believed you to be, the most important thing in their world. If your dog is beside you right now, put down your phone for just a moment and give them something they've been waiting all day for, your full attention, even just for 30 seconds. And then come back to the comments, because I want to know, what's your dog's name? And what's the one thing they do that makes you feel like you are their whole world? Tell me below, because honestly, reading those stories never gets old. And if this video gave you even one small moment of connection with your dog today, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. See you in the next one.